Tonight, we're going to be taking a look at a Wlliam Lane Craig video where he claims our reality could have only operated via mathematics, and mathematics work well with reality if God exists. Like, there's no reason whatsoever that our reality should follow the laws of mathematics the way that it does. So we'll be talking about why that's a horseshit argument tonight. If you want to fuck around and find out why Wlliam Lane Craig is wrong and you think I don't tackle serious apologists, then please stay tuned. All right, so welcome, heathens. We've got Wlliam Lane Craig. Now, Wlliam Lane Craig is going to be making the argument that the only way that mathematics makes sense is understanding it through God. Obviously, through God, all things are possible, even solving calculations and like calculus problems and differential equations. Apparently, those are only able to be solved through God. God is necessary for the universe to work mathematically and all this other kind of stuff. So don't be expecting too hard of a mathematical argument for God. It's pretty much, as far as I understand it, just math exists, therefore God exists, motherfucker. Believe and suck on Jesus' dick now. Praise God is kind of the route. In a very southern way, that's the exact route that Wlliam Lane Craig takes. He doesn't want to say the quiet part out loud, but I'll be his mouthpiece, if you will, for the quiet part that they're not saying. Anyways, let's go on ahead and get to the video, shall we?
Mathematical description of reality is where we're always led. It's fantastically accurate.
The book of nature is written in the language of mathematics. Throughout human history, man has discovered a universal framework providing insights into the deepest mysteries of reality.
Well, so first off, I have to say that humans created mathematics to describe the reality that we observe and that we live in. So it's not that mathematics was there waiting to be discovered. It's that we created mathematics to describe what we were observing in nature. So there's no way that nature can be built off of mathematics, considering that mathematics is a tool used to describe nature. It doesn't really make sense to say nature is built off of mathematics. Mathematics is a tool, just like various other things are tools in which to describe reality. I feel like he's starting off in a little bit of a bass-backwards place here, because he's kind of putting the cart before the horse. Nature just exists as it is, and we describe it with mathematics. What he's really trying to get at here, though, the quiet part that he's not saying out loud, is that the mechanisms behind reality, behind nature, that cause nature to operate in the way that it does, is what mathematics is. But that's not true, because there have been several points in history where mathematics has changed because we've observed something new about our reality. So there's no way for us to know that whatever math we have right now is really representative of how our universe works. The best that we can do is describe our reality with mathematics and other things. And the best that we could do is just describe it as we observe it. And when something new comes along, we augment our understanding of mathematics and we incorporate that into it. And this has happened a couple times in the past too. For instance, when Newton, had his whole apple idea, Newton was the first one that kicked off the whole calculus field of mathematics to describe how planets orbit around other massive objects like the sun and the moon around the earth and stuff like that. So we've changed mathematics a bunch during our time with having mathematics. Mathematics also changed around with general and special relativity. Our understanding of how our universe works, like when it near the beginning of time, near the beginning of the universe, and near the event horizon of black holes, that has changed. So mathematics has changed a lot over the years, but the reason why it's changed is not because our observable universe has changed or anything about nature has changed. It's just that we've observed things that don't fit with our current understanding of mathematics. So we have to change mathematics. And this is the crux of this entire video. It's 4 minutes. We're only 20 seconds in. We've already fucked it up a pretty good bit because the entire video here is going to operate off of this notion of putting the cart before the horse, that nature is based off of our current understanding of mathematics. This entire idea that it's structured in a certain way that only an intelligent designer could have put it together. It could be necessary that our universe, our reality operates this way as just how it is. Like it's one of those foundational principles of reality. That's just how our universe operates. But also there's nothing that says that another universe can't operate in a different way. For me, at least, that's why the cosmological argument doesn't really make a lot of sense, because if you try to apply the cosmological argument to other universes, there's no way for you to know whether or not those underlying mechanisms of reality are the same in those other parallel universes. One could assume that they would all be the same, but what do you have to base that assumption on? We don't really have a lot to base that assumption on. So if there's another universe that were to exist with different constants and different things, then we would have fundamentally different mechanisms that work in that universe, and we would have fundamentally different observations. And so we would end up with a fundamentally different set of mathematical equations, a different mathematics entirely. So that's where this particular argument and the cosmological argument really kind of fall flat for me, is that they make this presumption that the universe is based off of our current understanding of mathematics, and it's just really not.
Math lies at the foundations of transformative technologies. Its theorems led to the discovery of Einstein's general theory of relativity.
I feel like the problems with mathematics at the time probably is what fueled that one, because with Einstein's theory of special relativity and general relativity, that was an effort to provide explanations for observations that we have and to make predictions about things that would occur. If this area over here operates in this way, then that should affect the rest of reality in these ways. That's the predictive nature of science and mathematics. It wasn't like the current set of mathematics is what allowed Einstein to figure that shit out. I think that it was problems with current mathematics that didn't mesh with observations that they were making that fueled him to fundamentally change how we understood the universe. That's ultimately what Einstein was doing, was he was changing how we understood the universe to operate. He made a bunch of predictions, and so far they've been right on the money, the predictions that both of his theories made. Again, this isn't the first time it's happened. When Newton created calculus, he had observations that didn't make sense with the basic mechanics, classical mechanics. There's the idea of classical mechanics and how all that works, and then there's what Newton came up with, which was calculus. And with classical mechanics, you can't use classical mechanics to describe a lot of the things that we observe out in space, like orbiting planets and stuff like that. You need a different kind of mathematics in order to explain those things, like calculus. And so because of those observations not matching up with their current understanding of physics, it had to be reworked. It had to be changed. And then again, it also changed with string theory and quantum mechanics. So, those are different. The field of mathematics and physics has changed so much over time. It's really kind of crazy. It's crazy to think that somebody could be so myopic, like Wlliam Lane Craig is being here, that he would think that current mathematics drives all of past innovations and in the realm of mathematics. And it's just not true.
The laws of physics are all represented in surprisingly elegant mathematical equations. Every invention, every advancement owes mathematics a debt of gratitude. In fact, all of science relies on the assumption that we live in a mathematically imbued universe. But mathematics is so accurate, so effective at describing nature, that it presents us with a puzzle.
I don't think it really presents us with a puzzle at all. This is the whole cart before the horse kind of problem here, because we've set up mathematics to describe reality. And so that's why mathematics works so well with nature. So it seems so kind of weird to me to say, to marvel at how well mathematics describes reality when that's exactly why it was created, to describe reality. It's like, oh wow, that stop sign really stops cars. Did you know that? Stop signs stop cars. Stops people that are driving cars on occasion. It makes no sense to say what Wlliam Lane Craig said here. But then again, Wlliam Lane Craig is a theologian. He's not a mathematician.
In 1960, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist and mathematician Eugene Wigner published a paper that stunned the scientific community. He called it the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics.
And you see, that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me that somebody would even publish that kind of paper, because it's a lot like saying that rockets shooting off into space and launching satellites into orbit and everything like that, it's unreasonable to expect that to happen when we designed the rockets and the satellites and everything like that to do exactly that. There's nothing like miraculous about it as far as the physics goes, because we designed those things to do those particular jobs. Just like with mathematics, we have designed mathematics to describe the reality that we observe. So it's really not that big of a surprise. You can't say that it's unreasonable that it works as well, because that's exactly what we've designed it to do. Also, prior, I was not trying to suggest that classical mechanics isn't useful to us. It's definitely still useful and still very much used. But what we've changed about physics and mechanics has just been to try to fully describe every aspect of our universe rather than just what we experience here on Earth.
Wigner realized that the universe does not have to exhibit the mathematical structure that it does.
Okay, I would be interested to know what the logic is behind that, because to say that the universe doesn't have to exhibit our brand of mathematics, I would say is true. But then we would just have a different version of mathematics that describes reality. But you see, this is another problem of putting the cart before the horse. Because what you have is him saying, oh, the universe shouldn't operate according to mathematics, but yet we've crafted mathematics to describe the universe. So if the universe operated in any kind of different way, then we would have a different form of mathematics, because mathematics is created to describe reality. So regardless of what the underlying physics is, or the underlying principles of reality that kind of govern how shit works, regardless of what that is, mathematics is meant to describe it the best that we can. That's what he's really saying, is that the universe has no reason to work in the way that it does, except that it does work that way. And will we ever know why it does? Maybe not. Maybe we will. Well, we don't know. But all we do know is that the universe operates in this particular way, and mathematics describes it. Postulating some kind of intelligent designer as being necessary for the universe to operate the way that it does just literally makes no sense to me when you don't need a creator. Everything operates naturally. We don't find the need for a creator in anything else. So why should we need a creator to make sense of why the universe operates the way that it does? I think that's the real discussion that he's looking to have here, but he's really getting bogged down in this whole mathematics, or the universe is based on mathematics.
His awareness led to a question that continues to baffle philosophers and mathematicians. Why does mathematics work?
Because we designed it to work. And when it doesn't work, you know what we do? We change it! Yeah, Casey got that one right. It's really weird for me to hear somebody say this particular thing, because it's like, well, when mathematics doesn't work with our observations, it's either our observations are wrong, in which then we retest and we try to figure out what could have went wrong or what was wrong, or we have to change mathematics in order to match what our observations say. And that's happened multiple times in the past. I've already covered, poorly, I'm sure, I've covered some of those instances. So, I mean, it's not like this is something that hasn't happened before. This is some kind of weird out of the realm of possibility thing that I'm proposing here. This has happened multiple times. If it doesn't match with our observations, we either double check our observations, correct our observations, making sure that they are truly representative of reality, or we change math.
Perhaps even more puzzling, a mathematical framework exists not only in the physical world, but in human minds as well. How is it that a mathematical theorist like Peter Higgs can sit down at his desk and by poring over mathematical equations predict the existence of a fundamental particle?
Because that's how science works, dipshit! Then we got Quentin Van Boomen who says, how the fuck does this prove the Christian God? You know, that's what I would like to ask, because a lot of times people like Wlliam Lane Craig will use these very high-level philosophical kind of arguments for God, but they always want to say that it proves their particular God when it really doesn't. All he's doing is, I guess, trying to lay a foundation for a God existing, and that's what he's attempting to do. I'm hoping that's what I hope he doesn't think that this proves a Christian God. The way that science and mathematics works is that you can make predictions because the universe operates in the same way uniformly across the universe everywhere. It operates uniformly. And the way that we understand the universe to operate now, as far as we understand it, we can make predictions using science and mathematics and all these other tools. And so that's why this guy was able to sit down with mathematics, with science, with physics, and all that other kind of stuff and predict the Higgs boson. Because all of the calculations and everything like that, everything was pointing towards this Higgs boson particle, and all they had to do was find empirical evidence of it. So there you go.
The idea that the universe should be imbued with a mathematical structure that makes science possible cries out for explanation.
I mean, it really doesn't, at least the way that he's framing this, because we know why math works so well with nature. That's because we've designed mathematics to describe nature. That's why it is. If he's asking about why the underlying mechanics of reality exist, I don't know if we'll ever know, but I also don't think that you automatically have to posit a creator or an intelligent designer in order for those things to happen. I think it could just be a natural part of reality. It's just a natural fact of reality that's there.
Why is mathematics so effective? Wigner concluded it is difficult to avoid the impression that a miracle confronts us here.
It's not really a miracle when people designed it to do one job and it does that job. And when it doesn't do the job, then we change it so that it does do the job. There is no miracle in that.
For on his worldview, the effectiveness of mathematics is inexplicable. His account had to be a purely physical, scientific one. As a result, the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics seems to the naturalist to be just an amazing coincidence.
It's not an amazing coincidence because we designed it. I feel like I really am repeating myself a lot here. We designed it to do that, so it's not an amazing coincidence. I mean, it's a lot like saying, oh, it's an amazing coincidence that cars drive down the street. No, we designed them to do that, be driven rather. We designed them to travel down a street, and because they do that, they are working properly. It amazes me how he keeps on with this whole idea that it's an amazing thing that mathematics does the one job that it was created to do. It's not an amazing thing. That's expected. Like, mathematics doesn't get a cookie for doing its job, okay?
But the dismissal of the divine was never the initial target of scientific inquiry, for it was the faith of early scientists that inspired the project of modern science. Because there is a rational creator, you could study the universe logically. Subsequent discoveries unveiled its elegant mathematical foundations.
Well, no, so subsequent discoveries invited change to the way that mathematics works, like with gravity and the orbiting planets and everything like that. That invited change to mathematics. Einstein and his general and special relativity, him wanting to explain things that classical mechanics couldn't necessarily explain, invited change to mathematics, suggesting that those things like somehow were already explained by mathematics. I don't know if that's what he's saying, but it kind of makes it seem like it's working in the opposite direction as far as Craig understands it. It works in the opposite direction, like further advancements illuminated mathematics even further. But I mean, we had to change it to describe our observations.
The universe indeed had a logical structure. Mind seemed to be at its very center.
Well, no, I mean, it only has a logical structure because we created logic in order to explain observations in reality. That suffers from the same thing as mathematics does. We created the concept of logic, the laws of logic and all that to describe things that we noticed in nature. And mathematics was done the same way.
It turns out that the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics provides powerful evidence for the existence of God. If God exists, then the effectiveness of mathematics is actually something that we should expect.
Okay, this is why that argument's shit. Because you could say, oh, if we presume that God exists, then it makes total sense that Jesus would have been resurrected from the dead. If you can use that argument to also validate some ridiculous thing like a Jew resurrecting from the dead, I don't see the value in that argument. Because if you have to presume that God exists first, and it's your particular God that exists, like an intelligent and personal, powerful, and all this other kind of Frank Turk shit, then, I mean, you've already lost your argument. Because you first have to prove that God exists. You can't just presume God exists and then, but we should expect it to operate in this way. And I would also have to push back a little bit on this whole idea that we should expect it to operate in a uniform manner that we could describe with mathematics. In fact, if God can interject in our reality, if God can change how reality works, at least throughout the Old Testament and with Jesus' resurrection and everything like that, if he can violate reality's rules like that, then there's no way that you can know that mathematics works 100% of the time. Obviously, in a secular worldview, we admit that mathematics may not work 100% of the time. But what we can assure you is that as far as we know it, as far as we have observed so far, mathematics describes reality. So you can calculate gravity on any particular planet. You can calculate how far you need to shoot a rocket or how fast you need to shoot a rocket in order to escape Earth's gravity. But if God randomly changes the properties of reality, there's no way that you can guarantee that rocket will zip right up into low Earth orbit. There's no way that you can know that for sure. And in a very real way that God could just decide to cause that rocket to fall out of the sky for whatever reason. And that particular explanation is generally what people go to when they don't understand some shit. Like if some shit happens and they don't know what caused it, God did it! Like you find your keys in the couch. God did it. He helped me find my keys. Or if you're Ben Carson, God helped you pass your medical exam. If God were to exist in the way that the Christians describe him, there's no way that we can know physics and math and all that is going to work whenever we make a prediction. I don't see how we can make effective predictions on a world where God can just randomly decide to change shit. That's not how a uniform universe operates. You can't have your cake and eat it too in this particular respect. God either has to obey the laws of reality or he breaks them on occasion. You can literally put in any other God and it would work. So if this proves that Craig's God exists or any other kind of God exists, then it literally proves any other God.
And on atheism, there just isn't any explanation. As Albert Einstein famously remarked, the eternal mystery of the world is its comprehensibility. The fact that it is comprehensible is a miracle.
So it does seem like Einstein said this there's no context given. So the entire quote is, the eternal mystery of the world is its comprehensibility. The fact that it is comprehensible is a miracle. I don't think that he means miracle in the same way that Christians mean miracle. Typically, Albert Einstein wasn't exactly known for his belief like in a personal God. I feel like this is a quote mine. I don't know the entire context surrounding what he's saying here or like what he's actually meaning. I mean, earlier in this live stream, I directly said like, hey, we may never know why the universe operates the way that it does. I think that that's what Einstein's talking about here, because he says that it's the eternal mystery of the world is its comprehensibility. Just because Einstein said that doesn't mean anything for God. The fact that we can describe reality with mathematics is just the fact that we have brains that can make sense of this reality. I really don't think that the context that Craig is giving it here is really the context in which Einstein meant it.
If God does not exist, then the applicability of mathematics to the physical world is truly incomprehensible.
But so strictly based on what he's talking about here, if God does exist and it's Craig's God, then we shouldn't expect mathematics to describe reality at all times. Now, on a secular view, obviously, with mathematics, we're not saying that we know how the universe operates in totality. We're just saying that based on our observations, this is how it operates, and mathematics is describing how it operates. So under that understanding of uniformitarianism and how the universe works the same in the past as it does currently and as it will in the future, that's what gives us a firm foundation to make predictions about the future, to be able to use mathematics as a tool in order to understand things that we don't know. That's the underlying thing. What Craig, I feel like, is trying to ask is, why is the universe uniform in its operation? That's what he's essentially trying to ask, but he's going about it in a weird way where he says, why does the universe conform to mathematical principles? Well, that's an easy answer because we designed mathematics that way. But to get at the heart of what he's trying to ask here, while we don't know why the universe operates uniformly, I don't think that we necessarily need to know why it operates uniformly. We also don't have to posit that a God exists in order to describe the reality that we live in order to react to how our universe operates. Throwing God in there seems like a pointless thing to do when you just don't need to do it. The fact that our universe is uniform doesn't say anything about God. It's a non sequitur.
Yet we find ourselves in a world with a deep mathematical underpinning that defies probability.
Wait, I'm sorry. He said that it defies probability? Like if we design some machine to do its job and it does its job 99% of the time, does it really defy probability when it does its job? I don't think so. I don't think that it defies probability. I think it falls right in line with probability. Like to say that mathematics will 99.9% of the time provide you with a tool set to describe reality, you're going to fall right inside that 99.9%. Most of the time, unless you're doing theoretical shit or encountering some new observation. It makes no sense to say that the fact that the universe is comprehensible defies probability when you would need to provide the probabilistic equation that proves that. If it defies probability, what are you talking about? Are you talking about like a less than 1% chance that should happen? How are you coming to that number? What are you assigning values to here? Are you using empirical evidence? Like, do you have hard evidence of this? Like, he's just saying rhetoric that just leaves somebody to question, like, well, how the fuck do you get there? And he's not providing you with any kind of meat to it.
The effectiveness of mathematics in describing the physical world is literally a miracle, and therefore evidence for the existence of God.
I mean, I feel like miracle is being thrown around in weird ways here. Miracle in general is going to be like the least likely solution to any particular event or explanation or anything like that. And typically these miracles are going to violate the uniformity of nature. So saying that the uniformity of nature is itself a miracle seems to be saying that, oh, we should just expect chaos to reign supreme and there's no order, there's no uniformity, everything just sort of fucking and that's just how it operates. It doesn't make a lot of sense for him to just speculate this, that you would need like a god in order to stabilize reality when you don't have any evidence of that. So all in all, for this video, I found it to just be a lot of like just bullshit rhetoric that's being thrown out here. Just people that are well, not people, but Wlliam Lane Craig, that's just constantly sitting there saying that mathematics shouldn't work, but it does, without taking into account the fact that we designed mathematics to work with nature. And instead of actually proposing the real problem, which is why is nature uniformly operating? Why is that a thing? He decides to go from the ass end way, and it just ends up not making a lot of sense. I feel like if he actually asked the real question here, maybe we could have had a better conversation about it. Probabilities is part of mathematics. So math would define how probabilities work. Like that's a human created construct there. That's going to be it for the video tonight. I do have a minor in mathematics. But also the larger question, the philosophy of whether or not mathematics proves God, I don't think that it does. I think that we design mathematics to describe reality. If you're asking why does the universe operate uniformly, then I would say that I don't know why it operates uniformly, but I also don't think that a God is necessary to throw in there in order to explain it. I think nature can just be uniform. Like that's a necessary property of reality. So, I mean, I think there's that. If you're going to be leaving out right now, thank you so much for watching tonight. And we'll see you guys next week. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens.